Okay, so I think we're ready to move on. So it is week 23, and right now I want to remind you you can please log on to a Nearpod using the code in the upper left hand corner. So please right now just log into Nearpod using this code LG42S. And I'll remind you again, please remember to answer the 10th question and log on to Nearpod right now. That way we can take part in these activities that I have here. As you do that and log into Nearpod, make sure you have completed the TOPIS testing. It's very important, as it is a state requirement if you haven't done so. Okay. So I'll give it a couple of minutes to log on. Okay, I have one person logged on. Thank you for that. Let's wait for more people to log on. Okay, we have 2 now. Thank you. Okay, we have 3. Okay, let's move on while the rest log on. Okay, so it is week 23, and the objectives are going to be: you will read, interpret, and analyze Rosa Parks' Beyond the Bus. You will analyze the purpose and the textual elements of a passage, and you will make inferences about a text and use textual evidence. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing today. So let's get started. All right, we have 5 people now in your part. Awesome. Okay, so let's start off. Who are some influential women in our history? In U.S. history, who are some influential women? So I'm going to hide your names. Okay, let's go ahead and answer this question. Who are some influential women in our U.S. history? So think about the name. What did they do? Let's see. Okay, let me give you a hint. Who is the person named, or who's that person that was the first woman to fly over the Atlantic Ocean? Anybody know? Oh, Hillary Clinton. Awesome. Amelia Earhart, yes, that's correct. Rosa Parks, yeah. So what did these women do? Who were they? So as I said, Amelia Earhart was the first woman, the first female to fly over the Atlantic Ocean. Who was Hillary Clinton? Who was she, and who was Rosa Parks? Project Calvin. Okay, thank you. So what did they do? Who were they? What were they known for? Okay, let me give you another hint for someone else. Who was the female for the one that was part of the Underground Railroad? Who was that? So you might think back in your history classes. So think back. Underground Railroad. Remember, she was the one hiding Ruth Handler. So I was about to say her name, but the person I'm giving a hint at is she was hiding slaves in their safe houses. So who was this? Who was this? Okay, I can give you the first name. Harriet. Harriet what? What was the last name? Harriet Tubman. Yes, awesome. Okay, so yeah, these are all influential women in our history. So, why do I bring this up? Because it is March, and March is Women's History Month. So, a little bit about Women's History Month, brought to you by womenshistory.gov. So let's read. Women's History Month had its origins as a national celebration in 1981 when Congress passed Public Law 97-28, which authorized and requested the President to proclaim the week beginning March 7th, 1982 as Women's History Week. Throughout the next 5 years, Congress continued to pass joint resolutions designating a week in March as Women's History Week. In 1987, after being petitioned by the National Women's History Project, Congress passed Public Law 100-9, which designated the month of March 1987 as Women's History Month. Between 1988 and 1994, Congress passed additional resolutions requesting and authorizing the President to proclaim March of each year as Women's History Month. Since 1995, Presidents have issued a series of annual proclamations designating the month of March as Women's History Month. These proclamations celebrate the contributions women have made to the United States and recognize the specific achievements women have made over the course of American history in a variety of fields. Okay, so all the females that you mentioned before, they're all influential women and they are part of Women's History Month. Okay, so the month of March is Women's History Month. So we are going to be talking about Rosa Parks, and I'm so happy someone did mention it. So we will go further in learning about Rosa Parks. So we all know who Rosa Parks is, but let's go beyond this. Let's go beyond what was happening at that time. So can anybody tell me who Rosa Parks is? Put it in the chat box or open up your mic. Who can tell me who Rosa Parks is, or what was she known for?
He was known for not giving up the seat in the bus to the white man.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Yeah, she didn't want to give up her seat. So, that's all I'm going to say for now. This video is going to be a bio on her, okay? So we're going to learn a little bit more about her, and we're going to continue what happened that day, what was behind that day, who was with her, who helped her, okay? So we're going to cover that today. Let's go.
Rosa Louise McCauley was raised on her grandparents' farm in Pine Level, Alabama. As a child, Rosa was exposed to the realities of segregation. She walked to school daily because the elementary school bus system prohibited black students from riding. Rosa later attended the Alabama State Teachers College High School. However, due to both her grandmother and mother's illnesses, she was forced to drop out. At 19, Rosa met Raymond Parks, who worked with Montgomery's NAACP chapter. After their marriage in 1932, and much encouragement, she earned her high school diploma. Rosa joined Raymond in the NAACP, serving as the chapter's secretary and youth leader.
History is peculiar. It places gifted and talented women and men in situations where they must make a choice. The choice she made was on the afternoon of the 1st of December, 1955, on a bus, as she was going home from her seamstress job in a department store in Montgomery, Alabama.
Rosa, along with 3 other black passengers, were told to give up their seats to a white male passenger. She refused and was arrested. An all-day bus boycott was organized on the day of Rosa's trial, December 5th, 1955, where she was fined $14 and found guilty.
She was a role model for courage in the face of racial injustice. Rosa Parks, through her quiet eloquence, through her commitment both to her faith and to the cause of civil rights and racial equality, was prepared to sacrifice everything, her security, even her life, to fight for what was right, at least her perception of what was justice.
Thousands of people walked, carpooled, and took cabs to work. The boycott lasted 381 days, with a 26-year-old Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as their leader. Rosa was not the first person to refuse to give up her seat. 2 other women were previously arrested for the same offense. However, it was this quiet 42-year-old who became the face of the Montgomery bus boycott. In 1956, groundbreaking history was made.
The Supreme Court decision by a 9-0 vote supported the civil rights position, calling for an end to racial segregation on municipal buses.
Unable to find work, largely due to her political stance, the Parks moved north to Detroit, Michigan, and by 1965, Rosa began to work for Congressman John Conyers until 1988 when she retired. In memory of her husband and in her vision for a better tomorrow, Rosa co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, which educates young people on the civil rights movement, gives freedom bus tours, and provides youth with professional guidance. Rosa also worked giving lectures and advocating for social justice. Rosa Parks passed away on October 24th, 2005. She was the first woman and second African American to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. Rosa received over 24 honorary doctorates and numerous national and international awards, among them the Medal of Freedom from President Clinton and the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. Rosa was a grassroots activist for social justice and peace, through her efforts in the civil rights movement to her participation in the anti-apartheid movement for South Africa. Although she never planned on getting arrested, her simple action changed the course of a nation.
I think Mrs. Parks unexpectedly had greatness thrust upon her. I think she was born for it. And I do think she achieved it. You see what I mean? But had she not, on that particular day, said, I'm not moving, my feet hurt, we would have a different nation and a different world.
Okay, so there's that video, and I totally agree. The last line, what she said, is if Rosa Parks did not say that, if she said she didn't want to move because her feet were tired, that would have not did anything for the whole United States, right? If she said, I'm sorry, let me move this. There we go. So you're going to see later in the next video, what I'm talking about is what she said exactly. Okay, so keep in mind what she said. If she would have said, I didn't want to move because my feet are tired. Okay, so she said something else, and she was targeting something else. Okay, and I see there's something in the chat. Let me see. To encourage the youth. Yes, that's what Rosa Parks, that was her goal, to encourage the youth, and we will cover that. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Okay, let's go on to our next video. So this video is going to be a reenactment on what happened that day on the bus, okay? So it's very interesting, this video. So pay attention, look around, who's in the bus. Notice how they're going to be speaking right now. There she is, Rosa Parks.
Let me have them front seats. You hear me?
Look at the way,
Y'all need to make a ride on yourself, man. Get on up and have them seats.
look at the way he speaks to them.
Huh? Move that sign back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, sir, you can come ahead on now, move it. Why aren't you standing up?
I don't think I should have to.
And there it is.
Excuse me. Are you gonna move?
No. No, I'm not.
Imagine if she said, I'm not going to move because I'm tired. But look, pay attention to what she's saying. She's fighting.
Listen to me. If you don't move, I'm gonna call the police and they'll arrest you. You know I'll do it.
You may do that then.
All right. Yes, operator, I need the police department, please. Yes, I have a disrupted passenger on one of my buses. This is a Cleveland Avenue bus. I'm in front of the Empire Theater. You can't miss us.
Now pay attention now to what Rosa says to the police.
Alright, who's main control here?
Why are you gonna stand up and George spoke to you?
I don't believe I should have to.
Why is that?
Not sitting in the white section.
You don't know about this bus now, you hear? Man, don't make this tough on yourself. Come on.
Why do you push us around?
Paul's law and under arrest.
There it is. She did not stay quiet, right? So, let's move on to this question now. Now, what would you have done if you were in the bus sitting behind Rosa Parks? So just imagine you were there. You were behind Rosa Parks. What you would have done? If you notice in the video, no one said anything. Even one person got up with their child and they left. What would you have done if you were sitting behind Rosa Parks that day? So go ahead and type in your answer. And again, your names are not shown. Would you have said something? Or would you have just gone, left? What would you have done? Oh yeah, I would have backed her up and stood up with her. Awesome, yes. That's perfect, yeah. I would have expected someone to do that, but it only took her. Alright, people didn't see that she was fighting for all of them. And look at who she is now. What else? What else would you have done? Or what would you expect for them to say? Or would expect for them to do in this video that we just saw. I would have had her back, and I would have sit down, and I would have sit down next to her. Yeah, awesome. Yes. Yeah, because she was, remember the person that was next to her, he got up and he went to the back. Easy as that. He just left. Rosa, she stayed there until the police arrested her. Crazy. Let's see. Let's get one more answer. And if you notice, there was no violence, nothing. Her words were strong, they were powerful. Let's get one more answer. Alright, let's move on. Oh, there we go. I would have said nothing to her because anyone can sit everywhere in the bus. And oh, let me see. It's not showing me the full. There we go. I would have said nothing to her because anyone can sit everywhere in the bus, and it doesn't matter to which person you sit behind with. As I think that I should stood up to sit down next to her. Okay, so yeah, you would have done the same thing. You would have gone next to her, right? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for your answer. Okay, let's move on. Thank you all. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Google Classroom, and under 3A we do have the comment it posted, and it's going to be this one: Rosa Parks be on the bus. Okay, so please go to Google Classroom and open the comment it up. I'll give you a couple minutes just to open it up. Okay, so let's get started. There we go. Rosa Parks be on the bus by Barrett Smith. Oh, what happened? Oh, there we go. Okay, so Rosa Parks was an activist in the civil rights movement and is best known for her refusal to give up her seat on the bus for a white passenger on December 1st, 1955. However, this moment was in Parks' sole contribution to the civil rights movement. Okay, so before we start reading, any volunteers? You don't gotta read everything. You can at least read maybe a paragraph. Help me out in reading. So any volunteers? Okay, I'll go ahead and read. Okay, so Rosa Parks is one of the most well-known women in the civil rights movement. She is most famous for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a bus. Her arrest led to the historic Montgomery bus boycott. However, little is known about the fact that Rosa Parks was also involved in civil rights activism for years before that day. And after her release from prison, she continued to fight and inspire youth to do the same. So, remember Ashley, that's what Ashley said, it was for the youth. So yeah, there it is. So early life. Rosa Parks was born Rosa Louise McCauley in 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama. She was raised in the rural town of Pine Level, Alabama. The effects of deep racism in the rural South were some of her earliest memories, walking to her segregated school while white children took buses and watching the Ku Klux Klan march on the street in front of her home. Rosa Parks attended a secondary school led by the Alabama State's Teachers College for Negroes. However, she had to drop out in 11th grade to take care of her sick mother and grandmother. It was not until after she married Raymond Parks that she had the time and financial support to finish her degree. This was no small accomplishment, At the time, less than 10% of African Americans earned high school diplomas. Wow. It's only 10%. And she did that accomplishment. Okay, so if you notice, we have a first guiding question. So let's go ahead and do it together. So question number 1 says, during Park's childhood, she was, okay, so on the chat, put your answer. Is it A, encouraged to fight back against the racial discrimination she encountered? B, sheltered from the racial discrimination that she would face in the future? C, discouraged from getting involved in the civil rights movement because it was dangerous? Or D, exposed to racial prejudice and encountered various obstacles? So what do you think the answer is? Put it in the chat. Or you can say it out loud. What do you think this answer is? What was that, Matthew?
B.
B? Shelter from... Okay, let's see. Alright, there's something also in the chat. 2 chats. Okay, let's see. A and B. Okay. Let's try that. Hold on, let me try to get out of here. So, no. Okay. So why? So the correct answer is going to be D, exposed to racial prejudice and various obstacles. Because right here, the Ku Klux Klan would march in front of her street, in front of her home. So she was already exposed to racial prejudice because right here it says deep racism in the rural South, because she was in Alabama, so that's where racism was bad, right? And she encountered various obstacles because also we can consider this an obstacle. She had to take care of her sick mother and grandmother. Okay, so she didn't have it easy. Okay, so let's move on to civil rights movement. Thank you for your answers, though. Rosa Parks' most famous moment in the fight for civil rights was her refusal to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. But she spent much of her life as an activist. She became involved in the civil rights movement while working with her husband to free the Scottsboro Boys, 9 young black men accused of raping 2 white women. She joined the Montgomery, Alabama NAACP, as they call it, or the NAACP, chapter in 1943, and she was elected secretary the same day. She worked alongside the president of the NAACP, E.D. Nixon, fighting for criminal justice. They fought to protect black people from false accusations and lynchings, and wanted the law to respond to crimes committed against black people. Parks started a youth branch of the NAACP in Montgomery and inspired them to fight against segregation. Many parents didn't want their kids associated with the NAACP because they were scared of trouble. But Parks encouraged youth, again, to stand up for themselves and their rights. So again, there it is, to encourage the youth. That was her goal. Parks was a firm believer in respect and self-defense, which, as you saw in the video, in the reenactment, even as a child, her grandmother worried about her talking bigly to white folks. Parks' life was defined by a deep personal belief in individual rebellion and self-preservation. Even as a young woman, Parks told her grandmother that she would rather be lynched than live to be mistreated and not allowed to say, "I don't like it." It was this same value that gave her the strength to resist that famous day on the bus. Okay, let's move on. Guiding question number 2. Which of the following describes Parks' activism before she refused to give up her seat on the bus? Is it A, she was actively involved in the fight for civil rights? B, she was angry about segregation but didn't act on it? C, she was more focused on the rights of women and children? Or D, she didn't actively participate in the civil rights movement? So what do you think this answer is? Again, which of the following describes Parks' activism before she refused to give up her seat on the bus? Okay, so we have chat. A. Awesome. And the correct answer was A. She was actively involved in the fight for civil rights. Thank you. Okay, so the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks' activist career is often overlooked. Instead, she is often perceived as a quiet old lady on the bus, an image she would later refute, saying, "People always say that I didn't go in my seat because I was tired." So there it is again, saying I was tired. But that isn't true. I was not tired physically, and no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. I was not old, although some people have an image of me as being old then. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. So that's her reason why. That's what she was tired of. Some misunderstanding of Rosa Parks' story can be traced to the civil rights movement itself. The movement needed to portray itself sympathetically to gain support. They found that the image of a quiet, tired old lady better fit the sensibilities of the country, which was a white majority civil rights leaders, including Parks herself, used her public image as a way to better advance the cause. Okay, so now we have guiding question number 3. How is Parks often portrayed? A, as an activist who was strong and independent. B, as an older woman who was physically tired. C, as a leader of the civil rights movement. Or D, as a woman who was angry and stubborn. Okay, Chad. Okay, B. C. Yes, awesome. Yeah. So that's what she was portrayed as an older woman who was physically tired. That's what people thought. But no, the reason why she was tired of just giving in already. She was really tired of all this prejudice. She was tired already. After her arrest, and thank you for your answer, Ashley. After her arrest, Parks and E.D. Nixon decided to organize a protest of segregation by boycotting the bus system on the day of Parks' trial. Black participation in the boycott was higher than anybody anticipated. They decided to continue the protest for over a year. The Montgomery bus boycott that started with Parks' protest gained international attention and resulted in the Supreme Court ruling that bus segregation was unconstitutional. The national and worldwide popularity of Rosa Parks' arrest and the boycott propelled the civil rights movement to the international fame that allowed it to realize its goals. Later years, after the boycott ended, Rosa Parks moved to Detroit to avoid threats and harassment. There, she worked with Congressman John Conyers for 30 years. During that time, she founded the Institute for Self-Development. In honor of her late husband, Raymond Parks, she spent the remainder of her life using her fame to inspire youth to make change and become advocates for justice and peace. Parks also remained active politically until the end of her life. She met with the Pope in 2000 to discuss racial healing and has also met with President Bill Clinton and other important figures. She has received many awards, the highest of which include NAACP's Spring Garden Medal for Outstanding Achievement and the Presidential Medal of Freedom and Congressional Gold Medal, the 2 highest civilian honors in the United States. She has also received 2 NAACP Image Awards, one for playing herself in the TV series Touched by an Angel, and one for her book, Dear Miss Parks, A Dialogue with Today's Youth. Rosa Parks devoted her life to transforming the world for peace and justice. She passed away in 2005 at the age of 92. Her foundation, posthumous biography states briefly, Rosa Parks was a symbol to all to remain free. Okay, so the last question. After question number 4. After Parks moved to Detroit, she A, removed herself from civil rights activism. B, encouraged young people to fight for change. C, dedicated her time to the women's rights movement. Or D, inspired several other civil rights boycotts. Okay, C, B. Okay, C. Awesome, yes. So she encouraged young people to fight for change. Matthew, Ashley, thank you. Okay. So now that we did the guiding questions together, and we really read this article, now your assignment is going to be to cover the assessment questions. So they're going to be 5 assessment questions. Now let it load really quick. Okay, there we go. It's going to be 4 multiple choice and one written response. Okay, so the first one's going to be, which statement best expresses the central idea of the text? Second one, which detail from the text best supports the answer to part A? Third one, how did the assumptions surrounding Parks' decision not to give up her seat compare to her intentions? Fourth one, which section from the text best supports the answer to part A. Okay, so there's a part A and part B. So the fifth one, this is going to be your reader response. So the way you're going to respond is, remember, first the question is, how did Parks influence young people during her life? So you're going to start it off by saying, Parks influenced young people during her life by, and then you're going to say your answer, okay? So that's how you're going to start it off. That's how you're going to start your answer the question, okay? So there's your assignment. So now let's go back to the mirror part presentation. And let's move on. So here we have another video. So this is going to be Rosa Parks herself. This is going to be her speaking, okay? So this is like a small interview of her thought. Okay, so this is going to be about Rosa Parks. Here we go.
Now to one of the most memorable Americans ever to confront the issue of racial segregation head-on in this country 40 years ago. Rosa Parks, who in refusing to give up her seat on a city bus for a white man became the Mother Superior of the Civil Rights Movement. This week, at the age of 82, she's traveling this country with a group of students. Her story and what she is telling them in her own words.
I remember well these struggles that we went through during my childhood when the Ku Klux Klan was very active. It just made us stronger to continue the struggle for freedom. This was the seat that I took as I got on the bus. A few white people boarded the bus, and one man was left standing, and I certainly did not plan to stand up, and I didn't consider myself breaking a law because I was in what was supposed to be our part of the bus. So my arrest brought about a protest from the people of Montgomery that lasted 381 days. And when we did go back on the bus, the Supreme Court had handed down a decision that there would be no more racial segregation in transportation. When I was on the bus the time I was arrested, the only thing that was on my mind was that I did not want to be treated in that way.
It took her sitting down to get a people to stand up. And we can never, ever, ever forget her for that.
That happened to Rosa Parks in 1955. Just one more reminder that the happy-go-lucky 50s were not at all what they seem to be in the rose-colored glasses of our memories.
So yeah, it took her. She was sitting down. She didn't have to get up. And look what happened. She did it. So we have one more, but I just want to mention that I did see an interview with Rosa Parks, and she did say in her interview, this was in 1995, that when she got out of jail, E.D. Nixon bailed her out. So E.D. Nixon was the president of NAACP. And then after that, she went to the Baptist church that Martin Luther King was a pastor of. So that's what it started off. It started everything there because they were already planning it before. But that's what triggered everyone. Martin Luther King was like, okay, we're going to do something about this. So that's when he led the Civil Rights Movement. So that's where Rosa Parks transferred to Martin Luther King. So I found that very interesting. And she also did mention that she did this for the youth. She did this because she didn't want the youth to go through what they went through. She wanted you all, the youth, to have the most opportunity that you can. So because of her, we have every opportunity that we have. So yeah. So I have this video now. Something that we didn't cover. This is going to be just beyond what we already covered. What else behind it, and it is going to mention who planned it before. So this video is very interesting. Okay, so here we go.
Most of us know the inspiring story of Rosa Parks, the African-American civil rights activist who refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955. The bus boycott, spurred by Parks' arrest, would help bring down the racist laws of the Jim Crow South and turn a young preacher named Martin Luther King Jr. into the country's best-known civil rights leader. But we bet you didn't know that the story behind the bus boycott isn't quite as simple as it might seem. To start with, Rosa Parks wasn't the first black woman to resist bus segregation in Montgomery. In fact, several different women had been arrested for the same offense in the last 12 months. One of them was 15-year-old Claudette Colvin. On March 2nd, 1955, she was riding the bus home from high school when the driver demanded she give up her seat for a white woman. After Colvin refused, police officers arrived on the scene and dragged her off the bus in handcuffs. Claudette Colvin would go on to become one of 4 black female plaintiffs in Browder versus Gale, the Supreme Court case that would effectively end bus segregation. As a longtime volunteer in the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP and secretary to its president, Rosa Parks advised and supported Colvin. She knew that local black leaders had been thinking about how to confront bus segregation in Montgomery for years before 1955. She also knew they were looking for a test case, an upstanding citizen they could rally the community around. But Parks certainly didn't plan on becoming that test case herself until December 1st, 1955. At the wheel of the Cleveland Avenue bus that day was James Blake, the very same driver who had ordered Parks off his bus after a confrontation 12 years earlier. Parks was sitting in the middle section of the bus when Blake told her and 3 other black riders to stand up so that one white man could sit. The 3 other black riders moved, but she refused. Some people have said Parks was simply too exhausted from working a long day to move to the back of the bus, but she said later she wasn't physically tired, just tired of giving in to Jim Crow. The real story behind the Montgomery bus boycott may not be as simple as the myth, but it is no less powerful. The courageous resistance of Rosa Parks, Claudette Colvin, and other ordinary women became the life force of the civil rights movement.
Okay, there it is. So leading to my next point, I don't know if you noticed, I don't know if you noticed, I said we now have the opportunity that we have now. Because I say we, because why? That's the reason why. So during the 1950s, you would see this in Texas. So these signs are posted everywhere. We serve whites, only no Spanish or Mexicans. So that's why I say we. Okay? So just imagine, this in the 1950s, this posted everywhere. Buses, restrooms, restaurants, everywhere. Okay? So it's something to think about right there. So now for your exit ticket, I have this question for you. So now after seeing the image you just saw right now, do you think you can sign up for injustice like Rosa Parks? Why or why not? So again, your names are hiding. I just want to see what you are thinking now. So do you think you can sign up for injustice like Rosa Parks? Why or why not? What do y'all think? What do y'all think? After seeing what you just saw, or in general, what do you think? After learning about Rosa Parks, being in her position, fine. Alright, but I mean, it's important to stand up for yourself. Okay, there we go. Yes, because you yourself get to choose what you want or don't want to stand up for. You choose how you want to handle a situation with your actions. Yeah, you can't just stay there and not do nothing. Just imagine Rosa Parks didn't do anything. Like the rest of the people behind her. Just imagine that. None of this would have happened, right? But again, you have to stand up for yourself, and yet you have to say something, and you have to fight for what you want, right? And of course, she did it for everybody. Thank you for the answer. Yes, okay, another answer. Yes, I would want to stand up for injustice because you can choose to give up or not. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yep, again, it's very important. Yes, because during that time, this was justice and we should stand together. Perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah, at that time, I mean, there was that separation. And Rosa Parks changed it all. She stood up for everybody. Okay. So yeah, thank you for your answers. So this concludes my lesson. Any questions? Any questions on Rosa Parks? What did you all think? Okay, have something in the chat. Okay, actually, no. What do you mean no? Or no questions? Is that what you're meaning? That's probably what you mean. Okay, so you all are dismissed. Okay, hold on. Yes, no questions. Okay, Ashley, thank you. Okay, well, you all are dismissed. Unless you have any further questions, you all are dismissed. Thank you. We have one final one. Yes, because stand up to be someone is the most responsibility thing to do in life, and having to fight for the injustice. Yeah, I love that. Having to fight, yeah. To understand the meanings of life. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for this. Alright, thank you everybody. Kevin, you're good? Alright, awesome. Okay, you're dismissed if you don't have any further questions. Thank you. Bye, Kevin. Thank you. All right.
Great job!
Thank you.
That was so